talk 3 of the design track. I have the privilege again of introducing Grace Lynn, who is on the UX team at Roblox. Now, UX might be a new term for all of you, but that's the whole reason why we have this talk, to explain UX. So without further ado, Grace.
Hello, hi, I'm Grace Lynn, because we have many Graces here. Yeah, so this is me, known as Haha Monkey 5 on Roblox. And I've been here for almost 2 years now, but it's my first time at RDC and as a speaker. And right now, I'm currently the UX lead for Studio and Avatar. So what is UX? Anyone knows? Cool, cool, cool. So user experience, yes. And so this means this is how user experience the product. So for you guys, it'll be how players experience your game, right? So what do I do as a UX designer? Do I make things pretty? Nope. So yeah, this is like one part of my job, but like that's just a small part. So UX is more about making things work. Yeah, so my mission here is to like figure out user needs, which is your needs, and then figure out your pain points. And then we design solutions to provide like better user experience and to make your life easier. And most importantly, to make you happy. Yeah, so I'm gonna show some of my the work that I did. And then let's see what issues we've been addressing recently and then see if it fits your needs. So the first one. So we know that this is a feature that you've been requesting for years, and you have like long working hours, and sometimes you work in the dark, and your eyes hurt, right? So we think it's time for us to give you a better working environment. So this is our solution, dark theme. Hey. All right. So this is just released a few weeks ago, and now we let you easily switch between light and dark. Yeah, and then if you haven't tried it out yet, you can go to File, Settings, Studio, and then under General, click on the UI theme dropdown, and then you can switch to dark theme. All right, cool. And if you have any feedbacks or if you like it or don't like it, feel free to let us know. All right, so next thing. We know that you want to reach more players, and then you want to build up your own community, and you want to add a Discord link to your game. So we're introducing social media links. So you want Discord, we'll give you Discord, and Twitter, YouTube, and other social media. So now you can add up to 3 social media links, and then once it's added, it'll appear in the game details page. So this is not released yet, but we're gonna release this soon. Right, so today I'm gonna talk about like how to design great UX across platforms. So why should you care about all the different platforms? So let's do a quick survey. How many of you have your games on desktop? Raise a hand. Right, pretty much everyone. What about mobile? So, okay, what about Xbox? Okay, cool. So let's see where your players are on. Now, you can see here that more than half of your players are on mobile, and almost 40% on desktop. So you can tell that not desktop only anymore, yeah? Then if we break down mobile, you can see more than half are on phone, and then almost like 40% on tablet. So like all the different platforms have different limitations and then also different things to think about when you're designing for it. So let's take a quick overview of what we have currently. First thing, desktop. So this is the first platform that we support. Then phone, smaller screen but portable so you can play anywhere. Then console, so you play with a gamepad, very different interaction. And tablet, somewhere kind of in between phone and desktop. And then portrait mode, that allows you to play just with one hand. Yeah, so you can see the biggest differences here are the screen sizes and the interaction. So obviously, phones usually have the smallest screen, and then a tablet a bit larger, then larger on desktop and TVs. Yeah, so for interaction with mobile, you have a touch screen and you play with your fingers. So on desktop, it's usually mouse and keyboard. And then console, you use a gamepad to play. Yeah. So now you've known the basics and know the differences of each platform. I'm going to share some tips and some things to think about when you're designing for the different platforms. And I'll go over these three sections, so layout, interaction, and visual. So let's start with layout first. So layout is where you put your UI elements, and some things to think about this. Mobile first, restrictions, and thumb zone. So let's start with mobile first. So this means you start from a smaller screen, which is going to be phone in our case. Then you can move it to tablet, and then larger screens like desktop. So why do you need to do this? Okay, let's take a look at this graph again. So more than half of your players are on mobile. So probably, and it's also like still growing. So it's a good time for you to give more love to your mobile players, yeah? Then it's always easier to add than cut down. So if you have all the essentials set, it's easier to port it to like larger screens. Yep, and let's see what happens if you don't do this. So say you started on desktop. You got a perfect view like this. You want to put it onto phone, portrait mode. You scale everything down, but it can't fit, yeah? So if you already know that you're going to have your game on mobile, start from the smaller screens and prioritize the content so you don't just put everything out there. And then less is more so it doesn't lose focus. And then once you get the essential set, then it's easier to move on to larger screens. Right, cool, next. Restrictions. So as you can see here, we already took some spaces. So top part for menu bar, and bottom left move, and then bottom right jump. So this is just a more accurate view on phone. So portrait mode and landscape mode on tablet, and on desktop. So things to remember here, avoid the red areas, so you don't want like overlapping and stuff. Yep, cool. So next, thumb zone. So before I go into the details here, there's two things you need to know. So the first one, most of your mobile players play with their thumbs. Okay, maybe you know that already. Okay, the second one, your thumb has feelings as well. So yeah, maybe you can try with your thumbs. Like if you make it easy to move and move naturally, it'll be happy. If you stretch it a little bit, maybe it's okay. But if you want it to stretch too hard, it'll get mad, yeah? So thumb zone is like the map to tell you like how your thumbs feel in these areas. So green, it's easy to reach, so happy. And orange, okay, but red is where you want to avoid putting your main actions. Okay, let's see it with phone and hand. So left hand, right hand, then two hands together, then landscape mode, and then the tablet view. So yeah, just keep in mind that because these areas might change based on the screen sizes and how big your hand is, but you get the concept here. Yep. So let's take a look at this example here. You know what this game is? Yeah, so let's see how they're doing. Right, they have the main interactions on the bottom, and the top area is where you drag the items to, right? So if we map it with the thumb zone, you can see they're doing a pretty good job. Like most of the interactions are in the green area, and in the red it's just like stats or info and time, which you can't really interact with. Yeah, so when thinking about layout, put your main actions in the green area so it's easy for them to reach and make your thumbs happy. Yeah, so we've just talked about like mobile first, restrictions, and thumb zone. And let's see if we put it all together, how this can help you with your layout. So mobile first, restrictions, and then thumb zone. So here you can see like all the different areas. So remember to avoid the reds and put your main action in the green. And then once it's all set, move to larger screens. Yeah, cool? Okay, now interaction. So this is how players interact with your UI. And we're gonna go over, you don't want conflicts in your game, and touch target and gamepad navigation. So there was a game that I played. It had this button like this called tasks. I have to open it up to see all the details and like what the tasks I need to complete, and also see the progress, right? So I wanted to leave it open when I'm playing, but then you remember we have restrictions. So now I can't move. Yeah, so it feels pretty bad that I can't do something that I want to or I need to. Yeah, so you want to avoid that. And then also another thing is muscle memory. So muscle memory means that if you're already pretty used to doing something, you might just like do it without a second thought. And so for example, maybe like when you're installing, you just click next, 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 and done. So you might not even be reading the text, right? So this is the same concept. So you have the layout like this. You have delete on the left and save on the right. You have the same thing for all screens. But one day you decided to switch. And then, so now save is on the left, delete is on the right. So what happens here? What? Yeah. So they might not even know what just happened, right? So you don't want to have that conflict in your design. So when you're designing interactions, think about the whole user flow and the layout, including like when it's collapsed or opened. And then think about the restrictions we already have, and also common usage or like your muscle memory. So you don't want to give them like bad surprises. Yeah. Right, next thing, touch target. So here on the left, you see this is a desktop view with a small cursor. And on the right, you have a phone with your thumb. So on desktop, it's pretty easy to hit the accurate target because the cursor is pretty small and you can like move precisely. But if we move the same buttons to phone, you have no cursors anymore, you only have your big thumb, right? And then it's easy to hit the wrong one. Yeah. So what you want to do is make the buttons big enough and leave comfortable safe spacing so they don't like mistab or misclick easily. The next one, gamepad navigation. So you know that when you're playing with a gamepad, you have very limited movements. Like you can only move one step at a time, right? So either up, down, left, right. So because of this, you want to think about your layout and where you want to start them. If you always start them from the left, so what happens if the most common used buttons are on the right? So they have to move all the way to the right. And then also like maybe also think if you want to start them from the middle, so it's easier to go either way. But these are things for you to think about because there's no like one perfect design for all games. So because of the limited movements, think about the layout and the starting point to give them a better experience. Yep. Last one, visual. So visual is what players see in your game. And things to think about here, consistency, readability, and visual feedback. So for the first one, so something about the font sizes here. Actually, when we do design, we might use different font sizes for different hierarchy. So for example, I might use a larger text for the title and slightly smaller for content. But for content, you usually don't see like different sizes in the same line, right? Yeah, so the same concept here. Like this is a common issue that we see a lot. So you have like items with all different names, and some are shorter, some are longer, and you just want them to fit in that box. Now it looks like this, but it feels pretty messy and uncomfortable to view. And then if you're thinking about localization, it might get even messier. So how can we fix this? Make it consistent overall, and if you can't fit everything in one line, maybe consider 2 lines. Yeah, right. So make it consistent overall for font sizes and spacing, and also your color usage, so it's more comfortable to view. The next one, readability. So if you ever have text on your screen, the most important thing to do is make it readable. So because if they can't read it, then it doesn't make sense at all. So like here on the right, you have a nice large screen here, and you want to put everything to mobile. So you just shrink everything down. So it's there, and it fits, but you can't really read it. So what you can do here is shrink it down a little bit, it's okay, but still make the font size big enough to read. And if it doesn't fit all the way, you can just add a scroll bar. Yeah. And another thing to consider is color contrast. So for these examples, the different combos, maybe you can easily tell which ones are easier to read and which ones are not. And if you can't tell, don't worry. Or if you don't know if you have like enough color contrast in your game, you can always like go online, search for a contrast checker, and then there's going to be like a lot of websites to help you do this. Right. So always make it easy to read. Remember to give like big enough font sizes and enough spacing, and also enough color contrast. Right. So next thing, visual feedback. So this is very important to always give your audience feedback so they know what's going on. So take buttons for example. Like on mobile, you want to show them which buttons are enabled, disabled, and like state changes when it's pressed. Then for desktop, there's one more called hover view since you're using a mouse. Yeah. And then on console, you want to let them know what the current selection is. Okay. Right. Now, so for visual feedback, always think about state changes, or say like win or lose, and also like loading states. Let them know what's going on, so it's easier to follow. Yep. Okay, just a quick recap of what we talked about here. Right, layout. Mobile first, start from the smaller screens, and prioritize your content. Then for restrictions, remember to avoid what we've already taken up. And then thumb zone, put your main actions in the green area. Then interaction, so you don't want conflicts, so no overlapping. And also think about muscle memory. And touch target, make your buttons big enough so it's easy to tap. Right, and gamepad navigation, think about the layout and your starting point. Then visual, so consistency, you want like same font sizes or colors overall in the same layout, same hierarchy. And readability, make your text big enough so it's easy to read, and think about color contrast. Then also visual feedback, always give your audience feedback so they know what's going on. Okay, so it's okay if you don't do things the right time, just like keep play testing and iterate, and then also test on real devices so you know how it feels. Yeah, and then give your players more love, think about your own game, and think what kind of experience you want to give them. So do you want to make your players look like this or like this? You can decide. All right, questions?
I was wondering about the thumb zones, particularly on mobile devices where the jump button is located.
Right.
I'd like to bring awareness to that there is a conflict with the jump button and friend request. They overlap each other. I was wondering if that's on a roadmap to be addressed in the future or not.
That I am not sure yet,
Okay.
because it's another team. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll bring this up to them.
All right, thank you.
Do you have any tips on making a UI in VR using Roblox's VR API?
So VR is actually another world. So because when you think about VR, it's like 3D, right? So not just like what you see right in front of you. You have to think about the depth. But for now, we haven't got into that much yet. Yeah, but we can talk offline.
Hi, my name's Irie Soja. I have a question. So I usually make my games on all platforms, not just one. Would you recommend that when you make UI, it goes like from a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it to have like, I guess, accessibility for it? So for example, should my UI be very, very similar from phone to console to computer, or should they all be drastically different but effectively, reach the points you talked about?
I would say it's good to have it consistent, but also depends on the content. Like maybe for phone and tablet, it's easy to like port this pretty similar layout, and then also for mobile and desktop. But then on console, because the interaction is very different, so it's okay to like switch it up a bit. And also like depends on what experience you want to give them. Yeah, so it depends on your game and the experience, and also like the different interactions they can do with their hand. Yeah.
Hello, over here.
Oh.
I feel like for new users that want to, or new developers that want to get into like with UI and like changing game in between platforms from mobile and to like Xbox, I feel like it's really hard for them to test out because you have to like script like do a lot of scripting to move around positions and like check if they're on Xbox or mobile. So I feel like this is a suggestion, but when you change, you can change or you can test out like the resolution of whatever device you're on. Is there a way in the future that you can implement that so that you can also see like your user or your GUIs like change position too when you're changing the device on like testing in the studio?
Like in studio.
Yeah, because you can switch in between
now-
like iPhone 7 and then iPad and such on like different resolutions.
Right now, I only know we have like the emulator where you can switch between different
Yeah.
devices, but on the real device, I don't know yet.
Oh no, but my suggestion is that you can't, or when you change like when you change the emulation, your GUIs don't change. I mean, they scale, but like if you change them like in game, like scripting, like when it's running in game, is there a way to like you can assign a position for when you're testing emulation, so that it switches over, like your GUIs switch over to that position for whatever thing you're testing or whatever device you're testing on?
Okay, that I'm not sure. I need to check on that, but I'll check and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
So this is about starting with the smallest screen concept. How small would you consider is small enough? Like, would
Okay.
something like an iPhone 5 be small, or would something like an S7 be small?
Are you familiar with pixels at all?
Yeah, like the
Okay.
Google Pixel? Or
Yeah, so
screen pixels, sorry.
when we do design for portrait mode, we usually do like 320, and then for landscape mode, I think it's what's that? I forgot, but I'll let you know later.
So
Yeah,
is
so
virtual size more important than the actual physical screen size that someone's interacting with?
so that's why you would need to test on a real device, because whatever you work on your screen might not be exactly the same when you put on your device, right? Yeah, but it's pretty much accurate. Won't be too far. Yeah, but maybe you can start with, I'll give you the numbers later, but then start designing with those numbers and in those screen sizes, and then test on your device, and then you can see the difference there.
Hey, I'm working on a game called NO2, and I just want to know if y'all recently made an update to how you can like design UI, like made it more accessible. I just wonder if y'all had any plans to expand on that.
You mean the UI editor?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like V1. And then we have plans to make improvements, but I don't know the roadmap yet. So just telling you, we do have plans on like making improvements on that. Yeah, and making it better and adding more features.
Yeah, and just to follow up on some of these questions, for our event games, we generally use the iPhone 5 as our test case. So usually if you can cover that, you usually are in a good state. In terms of the process of when you're designing a game, if you're like further in your game, you have an established audience, I think that's when you do some A and B testing and see how they feel with the UI layout. Also, a lot of them were UI and text UI questions. Tiffany's in the back. She'd love to answer your questions, so please see her, and she'll give you great responses. Also, Grace is amazing and can give you even more information in the back about more UX stuff. So thank you so much, and continue deving. Is that what we say? Continue deving.